Sasha Mercer was standing in my bathroom doorway, in a black wrap dress, with hers hair still wet at the ends, and I was trying very hard to act like I had not just forgotten how to speak English. She was borrowing my bathroom because her building's water was off again, which happened so regularly that she kept a spare set of clothes in my hall closet between a rain jacket and a broken umbrella I kept meaning to throw out. This was, somehow, a normal Tuesday. She was holding a small silver earring between two fingers and squinting at her reflection in the mirror I had propped against the wall, because I had never gotten around to mounting it properly. "I need better lighting in here," she said. "Not to me exactly. More to the mirror." "You need better lighting everywhere. That's a you problem." Her eyes flicked sideways. "Thank you, Eli." She went back to the earring. I went back to pretending I was looking at my phone. Sasha and I had been something like best friends for 3 years, which was the safe phrase we used when people asked. We had met at a fundraising gala for a children's literacy charity, where I had been roped in by my coworker to help set up chairs, and she had been there doing PR for one of the sponsors. She had walked up to me, holding 2 cups of coffee, with no available hands for anything else, and asked if I could open the door, and I had done it. And then, she had handed me one of the coffees and walked away. And I had spent the next 10 minutes trying to figure out if that had been intentional or accidental. It had been intentional. That was Sasha. She decided things quickly and without ceremony. After that night, we ended up exchanging numbers because she had left a scarf on a chair near where I was working, and I found it after she had gone. I texted her. She responded immediately. We met for coffee that week, and I learned she was doing freelance communications work, had recently moved from Montreal to Toronto for a contract position that had turned into a longer stay, and had opinions about parking in this city that I agreed with completely. 3 years later, she still stole my coffee and corrected my furniture choices and called me when something went sideways at work, because she had once said, "You are the only person who does not immediately try to fix it. You just listen." I had not told her that listening was not hard when it was her talking. She put the earring in, turned her head once each way to check, and seemed satisfied. Then, she looked at me properly for the first time since getting out of the shower, and I saw what she was hiding under the careful posture and the already done lipstick. Tonight was the Whitmore Group's annual winter gala. Sasha had been working the account for 4 months. It was the biggest event her freelance contract had attached her to since she moved to Toronto. A full room of Bay Street money, senior executives, press, a silent auction, a keynote, and enough people watching for things to go wrong that a single bad night could cost her the renewal she had been quietly counting on. She was supposed to go with Patrick. Patrick had become her ex 11 days ago. She had not sat on my couch and cried about it. What she had done was show up with a container of leftover pasta from the place on Bloor she liked, and spend 40 minutes telling me that she was tired of being with someone who treated her ambition like a perniciously tolerant flaw he was graciously tolerating. That was Sasha. She did not collapse into things. She identified them clearly, and then she moved forward, and you had to keep up. When she had asked me to come tonight as her guest, I said yes before she finished the sentence. Which was also how most things worked with us. She was looking at her reflection one more time, her fingers pressing lightly at the back of her neck where the dress tied. She reached back to adjust it, and the knot shifted wrong, and she said something under her breath. I will not repeat. Here, I said. I set my phone down and stepped behind her. She dropped her hands and held still. I fixed the tie slowly, making sure it sat flat and even, which was harder than it looked because the fabric was soft, and the knot wanted to slip. She watched me in the mirror. My hands are not designed for this, I said. You're doing fine. I made a small adjustment. There. She looked at the result in the mirror for a moment. Her eyes did not move to mine. Then she took a quiet breath. The kind that looked like she was letting something settle. I should have said something ordinary. Ready? Coats on the chair. You look great. Let's go. Instead, I stood there just slightly too close to where a normal person would stand, and I said, "You look beautiful tonight, Sasha." She went still. Not a dramatic freeze. Nothing cinematic. Just a small, almost invisible pause, the kind where a breath gets held without deciding to. Then she turned around. She looked at me for a second that felt longer than it was, and her expression did something I couldn't fully read. Something that sat between surprise and something older than surprise. "That," she said quietly, "was not how you talk to someone you go to hockey games with." I could have taken it back. I had a full list of exits. Lighting, the dress, nerves before a big evening, take your pick. I could have laughed and reached for my jacket and made the whole thing disappear. I didn't. "Maybe it wasn't," I said. The room felt different after that. Same lamp on the table. Same coat I had laid over the chair so she wouldn't have to ask where it was. Same cracked tile by the window. I had been meaning to report to the building for 6 months. But something in it had shifted just enough that there was no comfortable direction to look. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She closed her eyes for 1 second. Then she picked it up. Her voice changed before she even said hello. Steady, light, professional. "Sasha Mercer." She listened. "Then what do you mean the registration list didn't export correctly?" She paused. "No, don't let the executive director see that. Tell him we're doing final checks." "Who confirmed the audio setup?" Another pause. "The keynote mic," she said, with the careful patience of someone absorbing a minor disaster. "That's the one we specifically flagged in the walkthrough." She was already picking up her clutch with her free hand, scanning the room for anything she had left behind. I grabbed my jacket off the hook by the door. She hung up and looked at me. "Registration is a mess. The keynote mic may not be working, and apparently someone let the press in through the wrong entrance, and they're now standing in the catering staging area." I held up her coat. She walked past me and then stopped at the door with her hand on the frame. For a half second, she was not in work mode, just standing there with her hand on my doorframe, in a dress she looked incredible in, with her earring catching the light, and something unfinished, sitting in the air between us. "Eli." "Yeah." She looked back. Her voice was careful. "If you look at me like that again tonight," she said, "I'm going to have a very hard time keeping my attention where it belongs." Then she opened the door and walked into the hallway, like she had not just moved the entire ground. 6 inches to the left, I followed her with my keys in my hand, and my heart doing something medically inadvisable. We took the subway, because parking near the venue was a reasonable suggestion only if you wanted to spend most of the evening arguing with a parking app. The ride was quieter than usual. Her shoulder was against mine the way it always was when the car was crowded, except tonight I was more aware of it than I had any right to be. The venue was a converted heritage building in the distillery district that the Whitmore Group rented every December. From outside it looked exactly like how a gala was supposed to look. Warm light in tall windows. A valet stand. Guests in long coats moving through glass doors. Inside, a live jazz trio was playing near the entry, and the ceiling had been hung with Edison lights that made the whole room feel warmer than the temperature warranted. Sasha stopped just inside the entrance, took one breath, and became a different version of herself. Not fake, just focused. Shoulders settled, chin up. The smile that she used when she was managing a room rather than enjoying it. I had seen her do it before at smaller events. Tonight it was sharper, because 20 minutes ago she had been standing in my bathroom, adjusting an earring with wet hair. A young woman in a black blazer materialized immediately at her elbow. "Sasha, worst thing first please," Sasha said, not breaking stride. The woman, whose name I would learn was Britt, consulted her tablet. Registration printed with last year's attendee list. "We caught it, but we're doing manual check-in, which is slow." The keynote microphone is fixed. That was a loose connection. And the Ellison family arrived 40 minutes early and are now asking why their table isn't set yet. Sasha didn't stop walking. The Ellisons donate $60,000 a year to this organization. Give them the bar, the hors d'oeuvres pass, and a personal apology from me in 7 minutes when I've dealt with the registration table. What else? Britt hesitated. There's a worse thing? The silent auction item from the Tanglewood Gallery is not in the room. Sasha stopped. I looked between them. I'm going to guess, I said. That's the expensive one. Britt gave me a small, pained smile. It's the centerpiece lot, estimated at $18,000. Sasha closed her eyes for 2 seconds. Then, where is it? It may be in the loading bay. The courier confirmed delivery, but facilities says it never cleared intake, and apparently it requires 2 people to move and nobody coordinated that. Sasha opened her eyes. The calm that had replaced the closed eyes was more unsettling than frustration would have been. Find the facilities lead. I need eyes on that piece in 4 minutes. Move the Ellisons to the private lounge. Tell them we're doing a pre-event preview for our top donors. Which is now true because we're doing it for them. Keep the press in the foyer until the room is set. She looked at Britt. Breathe. Britt breathed. Then she turned and walked quickly in 3 directions, seemingly at once. I leaned toward Sasha. I said, "You're a little terrifying when you're organized." "I'm always organized. You're usually also warm." She glanced at me sideways. "I'm warm. You're efficient with warmth right now." That got a small exhale that might have been a laugh. Then, a board member in an expensive blazer came toward us with a glass of sparkling water and a concerned expression. And Sasha was gone again. For the next 30 minutes I operated as what I think could fairly be described as a highly mobile support structure. I took coats when the coat check backed up. I redirected a journalist who had wandered into a staff-only corridor. I found an extension cord that a technician needed and could not locate. I listened very carefully while a retired judge explained to me that the music was slightly too loud for conversation, nodded seriously, and then went and found Britt and passed the information along. Every few minutes I found Sasha somewhere in the room. She was always moving, always with someone, always 1 degree too composed. I knew the tells. Her champagne glass stayed full, her left hand pressed flat against her side when she was standing still. When someone said something that required a patient response, she tilted her head 2 degrees to the right. I found her near the silent auction tables during a small lull, checking bid sheets against her clipboard. "You're doing the posture thing," I said. "What posture thing?" "The one where your spine looks like it signed a liability waiver." She looked up from the clipboard. "That is not a medical condition. It is specifically yours." Her mouth moved. I would describe it as a suppressed smile. "I hate that you pay attention." "No, you don't." "No," she said, quieter. "I don't." And just like that the room got small again. Not my apartment small, but small enough. Then someone said, "Sasha." Her face changed before she turned. I knew it before I looked. Patrick was standing a few feet away, in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than a month of my rent. He was the kind of handsome that made a good first impression, and took a while to notice the gaps in. He smiled like he had arrived exactly at the right moment, which in my experience was how people acted when they wanted to remind you they existed. "Patrick," Sasha said. Her voice was even and controlled and gave absolutely nothing away. His eyes moved to me, then back to her. "I didn't realize you'd filled the +1 spot so quickly." I put out my hand. "Eli." He shook it like he was assessing something. "Right. The friend." "Sasha's stabilizing force," I said, and I felt her shift almost imperceptibly beside me, pressing her lips together. Patrick's smile didn't reach anything above his mouth. Generous title. "I try to earn things," I said. Sasha stepped in. "We need to get back to the floor." "Enjoy the evening, Patrick." She took my sleeve and steered us through a side door into a service corridor that smelled like catering, trays, and industrial carpet. The second the door closed, she exhaled sharply. He bought a table through his firm. I thought he wouldn't actually come. He has a gift for bad timing. She leaned back against the shelving unit and looked at the ceiling for a second. He once told me I worked too much. This is literally a work event he's attending as a guest of a firm that clients his division. I said, "Do you want me to lose his coat?" She looked at me. "It would be a real shame," I said. "Coat check happens. Things go missing." She laughed. A real one, not the managed version she'd been using on donors. The one that started small and came out before she could edit it. Some of the tension left her shoulders. Then the door opened and Britt came through it at speed. Found the piece. Sasha straightened immediately. "Where?" "Loading bay. Still crated. Facilities says the crate needs 2 people and neither handler wants to suit up now." I pulled off my jacket. Sasha turned to me. "Eli, you're in your good shirt. I've moved things in worse. It's a gallery piece. I'm going to move the crate, not the piece." "Where's the loading bay?" Britt pointed. "Past the catering prep. Right at the freight stairs. It's left through the fire door." Sasha was looking at me with something I didn't have a word for yet. It sat somewhere between worry and something warmer than worry. "You don't have to," she said. "I know." That seemed to matter more to her than enthusiasm would have. I left before she could add anything and went to find the freight stairs. The crate was not small. It was the kind of object that made you understand why furniture movers charged what they charged. A facilities worker named Ray was standing next to it, with the expression of someone who had suggested the obvious solution twice and been overruled by logistics. Ray looked at my dress, shirt. "Your event staff?" "Guest," I said. I set down my jacket. "Let's figure out the angle." The problem was not moving the crate. The problem was the loading bay had a concrete lip, then a corridor with a sharp corner, then a freight elevator with a gap that the dolly did not want to cooperate with. We went 6 inches at a time. I suggested angling the dolly. Ray suggested tipping the crate slightly. We disagreed. We tried Ray's method. It worked better. I said so. By the time we cleared the elevator and came through the back of the gallery, my shirt was untucked and I had abandoned the idea of looking like I belonged at a gala. Britt was waiting. Her eyes went wide. "You got it." "Ray and I got it," I said. Ray nodded, once like we were colleagues who had been through something. We positioned the crate on the display platform. A facilities woman opened it carefully. Inside was a large ceramic sculpture. Dark clay, with a pale glaze. Abstract but graceful. The kind of thing that made non-art people stop and look longer than they expected to. The room around the auction tables shifted slightly as people drifted toward it. I stepped back and rolled my shoulders. Across the room, I found Sasha. She was mid-sentence with a woman holding a program. She saw the sculpture first. Then she saw me. And I watched her expression do the thing it had done in my apartment, except this time the room was full of people, and she couldn't quite contain it. The professional mask softened in a way that felt private. She finished her conversation and came straight over. "You saved the auction," she said. "We moved a crate. You showed up without making me ask twice. Ray did most of the structural problem solving." She looked at my untucked shirt, my loosened collar. She reached up and straightened my lapel. Her fingers were light, just fixing the fabric, except they paused there for a moment, after the fabric was already fine. "You need to stop," she said quietly, "doing things that make it harder to keep pretending. This is nothing." I looked at her hand, then at her face. "That's starting to sound like a mutual issue," I said. Her breath caught. Small. Almost invisible. Then someone called her name from across the room, and her hand dropped, and she turned without stepping back first. "Don't go anywhere," she said. "I'll be the guy who looks like he lost a fight with a freight elevator." She smiled like she didn't want to and went. Britt materialized beside me with 2 glasses of sparkling water and handed me one. She looked toward Sasha. She doesn't let people actually help her, Britt said. Like, she accepts help. But she doesn't let people carry things with her. I don't know that I carry things with her. You just moved a heavy crate in a good shirt. That was practical. Britt looked at me. Patrick used to complain that her job meant too many evening events. She glanced over at where Patrick was standing near the bar. He's been on his phone for the last 20 minutes. That tracks. She handed me a napkin that had been under the water glass. For what it's worth, she said, I've done this event 3 years running. And this is the first time she's looked at the loading dock like it was where she wanted to be. Before I could answer, a caterer called Britt's name from across the room, and she went. I turned toward the auction tables and walked directly into Patrick. He had clearly been waiting. His drink was nearly finished, and he had the energy of someone who had decided to say something and was now committed to it. Nice rescue, he said. It was a logistics issue, I said. We solved it. He nodded slowly like I had said something he expected. She does that, he said. Makes people feel necessary. She's good at it. But she burns through people, Eli. She takes on too much. She shuts down when things get hard, and eventually she disappears into the work and you're just standing there, wondering why you're not enough of a priority to get through. There it was. Not a clean lie, something worse. A piece of truth, with all the context removed. Sasha did take on too much. She did go quiet when she was overwhelmed. She did put the work between herself and people who got too close. Not because she didn't care, but because caring scared her more than any logistics failure ever could. But Patrick didn't get to hand me that information like it was a warning label. I looked at him. You dated her, and you still understood her less than a facilities worker named Ray, I said. That's the part I'd think about. His jaw tightened. I left him standing there and went to find her. She was in a smaller side gallery near the end of the room, standing alone by a row of framed photographs that were part of the organization's history display. She had one hand resting on the back of a chair. She was breathing in the slow, deliberate way of someone who had stolen 60 seconds from their own event. She looked over. Patrick. Her expression closed slightly. Of course. He told me you burn people out, that you make people feel important until you can't handle being known. She looked down at the floor. I'm telling you because I don't want that sitting between us as something he gets to own. He took a piece of how you are and used it like it was a flaw you should be ashamed of. She was quiet for a moment. He's not completely wrong about the pattern. He's completely wrong about what it means. She looked up. I stepped a little closer. You don't disappear because you don't care. You disappear because caring costs you something, and nobody has ever made it feel like the cost was worth it. That's different. Sasha stared at me. The composure she had been maintaining all evening shifted. Not dramatically, just enough that she looked less like a professional in a difficult room, and more like herself in my kitchen, on a Wednesday morning, stealing the last of the coffee. You are, she said slowly, dangerously easy to trust. I'm just accurate. She held my eyes for a long moment. That's the problem. The side door opened. Britt stepped in, took one look at us, and had the good grace to appear apologetic. I am genuinely sorry. The board chair wants a group photo and they'd like you and your guest, Sasha. Sasha did not look away from me. Tell them yes. Britt hesitated. Yes, yes. She finally turned. Yes, if Eli's okay with it. I said I was fine with it. She reached for my hand. Not quietly, not as something deniable. She just took it, her fingers wrapping around mine in the same grip she used when she was decided about something. I'm tired, she said, of making this smaller than it is. Britt made a small sound that may have been delight, then composed herself. Great. Love that. Very brave. Following up with the board chair now. The photograph happened in front of the gallery piece that Ray and I had moved 3 hours earlier. The photographer arranged us beside 2 board members and told everyone to step in closer. Sasha moved first. Her hand settled at my side, easy and certain. I put mine at the small of her back and left it there. She looked up at me just before the flash. No careful distance. No label maintaining the space between us. Just her, in the room, with me, not pretending it was nothing. Across the gallery I saw Patrick find his coat. He left before the silent auction closed. The room cleared slowly after midnight. The jazz trio wrapped up. Servers moved through collecting glasses and resetting chairs for the morning venue turnover. The sculpture sat on its platform, looking exactly as unbothered as expensive art always does. Sasha stood at the edge of the room, with her clipboard tucked under her arm, watching Britt do final checks with the venue manager. Britt came over with her tablet pressed to her chest and the specific exhaustion of someone who had fixed 11 problems and felt good about it. Final count is strong. Board chair is happy. The keynote landed well, and the Ellisons left with their checks signed. Also, she said, the missing sculpture has been described in 2 press summaries as a dramatic reveal, because apparently rich people prefer that narrative. Sasha let out a small laugh. Britt looked at me. You are both useful and good-looking, which is an annoying combination. I prefer structurally essential. I knew you'd say something like that. She pointed between us. I'm going home before whatever is happening here requires me to emotionally process it on a work night. She started toward the exit, then stopped. For the record, Sasha. He knew you prefer the window seat at the Bloor Diner. You mentioned it once, 2 years ago. That's the kind of attention that tells you something. That proves nothing, Sasha said. It proves everything, Britt said, and pushed through the door. The room was quiet after that. Not completely silent. Buildings like the Distillery District ones never went truly silent, but compared to 3 hours of managed chaos, the remaining sound felt private. Sasha took off her heels. First one, then the other. She exhaled like she had been holding her breath since we left my apartment. There she is, I said. Do not start. The version of you who doesn't have a headset. She looked at me sideways. You are not as funny as you think you are. I'm exactly as funny as I think I am. She leaned against the wall near the photography display, heels in one hand, and looked around the room slowly. The dress was the same. The lipstick was almost gone. A few pieces of hair had come loose in the way that happens after a long evening of managing everything. That was the version of her I had spent 3 years understanding. Not the one that ran a room. The one that showed up in my kitchen at 9 a.m. with a theory about why her upstairs neighbor was secretly learning the drums. I stepped closer but not all the way. So, I said. She looked over. When you said you were tired of making this smaller than it is. I paused. Did you mean tonight? Her fingers tightened around the heels. Or us? For once she didn't redirect. She didn't check behind her for the next thing that needed managing. Us, she said. One word. That was all it took to move 3 years from one category to another. I moved closer. She straightened slightly, but didn't step back. Sasha. I know. She said it quietly. I know we should probably do this properly. Have the conversation, take the time, be careful about the thing that's steady. I know all of that. Okay, but... She looked at me directly. I have spent 3 years telling myself that what I felt when I saw your name on my phone was just what close friendship felt like. And I think I've been wrong for most of that. I reached for her hand. She let me take it. You are safe, I said. That was never the thing I was worried about. No, she said. The thing I was worried about was that I wanted more than safe. And wanting more than safe from someone you can't afford to lose is the most frightening thing I know. That was the last careful sentence either of us said. I kissed her in the empty gala room, with the auction tables cleared and the sculpture watching from its platform, and the jazz chairs still arranged in a semicircle. Nobody would need until morning. It did not feel sudden. It felt like a door we had both been standing in front of for 3 years, both pretending we were just waiting for a coat. She kissed me back like she had been composing herself all night for exactly this reason, and had finally decided composure was overrated. Her hand came to my collar, not urgent, just there, holding me present. I rested my hand at her back the same way it had been in the photograph, except now there was no camera, and no board chair, and no Patrick leaving early with his jaw tight. When we pulled apart, she kept her forehead close to mine. My feet hurt, she said. I know, and Britt is going to be absolutely insufferable tomorrow. She has earned it. She laughed into my shoulder, and the sound of it did something to me that the kiss had not finished doing. We took the subway home, because we had taken the subway here, and there was something right about the symmetry of it. She leaned her head against my shoulder, the way she sometimes did when she was tired. Except this time neither of us pretended it was just about being tired. Her hand stayed in mine, and I did not look at my phone once. At her building, I walked her up. Same lobby with the broken mail slot that the property manager had been promising to fix since September. Same elevator with the slow close on the left door. Same hallway with the bicycle someone had left outside 4C for 3 months. Everything ordinary. At her door she turned around and looked at me in a way that she had probably been looking at me for longer than either of us had admitted. I need to ask you something, she said. Okay. At my apartment tomorrow, the shelf above the radiator. I waited. I've always thought it would be better with the books horizontal instead of vertical. She tilted her head. I'd like your opinion. I said, I've thought that for 2 years. She said, I know you have. Then she kissed me once, quickly, like it was easy, like it had always been easy, and went inside. Write in the comments. Was Sasha right to wait? Or should she have said something before one difficult evening forced it out? A month later, nobody at the Whitmore Group's office pretended not to know. Britt texted me separately to say she had been the one who gave Sasha my number the first time she thought about calling me instead of handling something alone. She sent it like a confession, then immediately followed it with 3 words. You're welcome, Eli. Sasha told her she was irreplaceable in a tone that suggested the opposite. Britt thanked her warmly. Sasha still borrowed my bathroom when her building's water went off. She still had opinions about my furniture that she expressed without being asked. I still showed up when things went sideways and helped move whatever needed moving. We still took the subway when we could, still argued about what to order, still had the kind of shorthand that made other people feel slightly outside the conversation. Nothing important felt new. It just finally had the right name,